Has anyone seen the 2003 movie, Pieces of April? Okay, this is so not your typical favorite Easter movie of anybody, right? And it certainly didn't make like the top 10 lists that you might see on other websites. However, I think it tells an Easter story. April, how timely is the young woman's name, is hosting Thanksgiving for her family. I know it's Thanksgiving and we're celebrating Easter, but the story still holds, so stick with me. They're driving, the family is driving into New York City from Pennsylvania. And early on in the movie, it is clear that family relationships are strained. Now, I know that doesn't happen in any of our families, but let's just assume, right? Get into the movie with me. Yet, April really wants this dinner in her one-bedroom walk-up apartment with her boyfriend, Bobby, to be truly memorable. And what happens? Everything goes wrong, starting with the oven breaking. So April ends up knocking on doors throughout her apartment building. I think it's a 5-story walk up, so picture the scene. Meeting her neighbors for the first time and trying to find a place to cook her turkey. Every encounter reveals humanity. We see the anxiety, the stress, the gratitude that April feels as she prepares this feast. And it is apparent that relationships between family members, neighbors, and strangers are complex and fragile. In one scene, after knocking on doors in an attempt to find anyone willing to let her use their oven, April is in the apartment of a multi-generational Asian family. The grandparents don't understand English. So April struggles to explain the idea of Thanksgiving. The words just aren't coming out right until she says, once there was a day, this one day, when everyone realized they needed each other. It translated easily. My friends, we realize we need each other because our lives are really complicated and messy. And we cannot and are not supposed to do it on our own. So at the end of the movie, all the complicated journeys and strained relationships converge around the table with neighbors and family. This is so not the dinner that April had imagined. At that moment, there is peace and joy in the mutual recognition that they need each other. They don't need to be perfect. They just need to be together. Does anybody else feel that in their current life experience, it's a little bit different than how they imagined it? Does anybody feel that? Sometimes for me, actually for me often, it's challenging to remain filled with hope when bombarded by the reality that surrounds us. Against a backdrop punctuated by personal grief and health challenges, senseless violence in our communities, and unspeakable oppression around the world, how are we supposed to hope? The movie suggests we might consider being vulnerable with the people around us, asking for what we need, accepting what's offered, and relying on community. Here at St. Mary Magdalene, I continue to be overwhelmed by the Spirit at work in so many ways, in so many lives. As Mary Ann so eloquently proclaimed at the end of our second reading, let us celebrate every influence, every person, every season of our lives, every insight, every learning experience that has led us to hope and faith in the midst of the ups and downs in our life. And speaking of hope, it is striking to me that this year, this weekend, is holy for 4 religious traditions, each celebrating their own story of liberation. As Mirabai Starr, in her latest newsletter, Musings from Mirabai, says, spring is a season of liberation. And this weekend, 4 holy days, Passover, Easter, Ramadan, and Hanuman Jayanti, conspire to set us free. I found Mirabai's reflections instructive, so I want to share snippets. See if you can see any patterns. In the Christian tradition, perhaps the one we're most familiar with, Easter comes when we most need outrageous and extravagant hope, embedded in the metaphor of the resurrection that follows crucifixion. The world is warming deep in the belly of the earth, and new life is breaking forth. The injuries and insults that have beset us personally and communally burn like alchemical fire to transfigure us, revealing new ways to be in loving communion with each other and with the earth. In the Jewish tradition, Passover reminds us of our liberation from bondage in Egypt to freedom in the land of milk and honey. Passover offers the opportunity to consciously extricate ourselves from the habits of thought that enslave us. In the Islamic tradition, this year, Ramadan, which runs from April 1st to May 1st, spans the other spring holy days. Ramadan commemorates the revelation of the Holy Quran. Every Muslim I know treasures the quiet joy of this month-long practice of fasting and intensified prayer. By sitting with the emptiness of hunger throughout the daylight hours and then gathering with loved ones to break the fast when the sun goes down, we renew our gratitude for the abundance of goodness and mercy that Allah bestows. And in the Hindu tradition, Hanuman Jayanti celebrates the birthday of the holy monkey, Hanuman, who represents unconditional devotion to the divine. When we sing to Hanuman, he fills us with the courage of heart and strength of mind to engage in compassionate action. Hanuman, who could fly across the ocean and uproot mountains to carry life-giving herbs to a wounded warrior whose feats of bravery reunited the masculine and the feminine aspects of the Godhead, Sita and Ram, thought nothing of his own abilities and saw himself as just a monkey. Hanuman reminds us that we are all just monkeys, loving and serving the one by loving and serving all. So my question, folks, did anything resonate with you as you heard Marabai's reflections on these 4 traditions? My takeaways, it really is a time for outrageous and extravagant hope. We're all invited to extricate ourselves from the habits of thought that enslave us. Fasting for a month from sunrise to sunset renews our gratitude and abundance and the goodness and mercy bestowed. That's a hard one for most of us. Think about it, a month of fasting. And my personal favorite, We are filled with the courage of heart and strength of mind to engage in compassionate action. The idea that we are all just monkeys, loving and serving the one. By loving and serving all really resonates, since my maiden name is Gibbons, and Gibbon is part of the, ape family. So happy Easter. Remember, holy monkeys. Now, I'm not implying that any of us are actually monkeys. However, there is freedom in loving and serving others. Perhaps it's not simply a calendar coincidence that we're in a season of liberation across 4 traditions, all focused on the intention of setting us free. Emphasis on us, all of us. Breathe that in. Amen.